this month, we feel like prayerfully that we'll cross over 1 million salvations. And that's
Wow.
1 million different individuals that have clicked that button that they want to accept Jesus as their leader and forgiver of their life.
Thought I was going to put a gun to my head and just end it. Had 2 kids at the time. My third hadn't been born. It was the pain. I couldn't focus on anything else besides the pain.
One of the most bad A things that somebody's ever said to me, he looks right at me and he says, if it's the Lord's will, then let it be done. This person is basically dead, yet still alive, existing on this rock, but I'll probably never see them again. The letters and the phone calls stop, not because they don't love the individual, but it's like, it's almost too painful of a reminder that this person is literally the walking dead.
I was asking victim, why God, why God, why God? Like, why are you doing this to me? Heard nothing. 4 a.m., changed the question to what do you want me to do? And clear as day, he said, learn the word, teach the word.
He's literally just using us as a vessel and as a tool to show his miraculous, life-changing power to the world. And that's really our heart at the end of the day.
God Behind Bars is one of the largest Christian prison ministries out there, and we have the founder of God Behind Bars on this episode, and we dive deep into the conversation of what it means to live out our Christian faith. He tells some stories, some wild stories of inmates and their conversion and how they sometimes can live even more Christ-like than the average Christian outside of prison. We get real in this conversation and discuss how they've reached over 1 million people for the kingdom. All right, welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm excited for this conversation. What God is doing through your organization is pretty incredible, for sure. Let's start off with, so God Behind Bars, it's been running for about how long?
15 years.
Okay.
This May.
Yeah.
Yeah.
15 years. And what exactly do you guys do?
Primarily, our mission is to introduce inmates to Jesus and connect them to the local church. But beyond that, we do a lot of things in family reunification. Obviously, a fatherless home is a huge deal. And so after we lead these men to Christ, teaching them how to be the hero in their child's life again is really what our next step is. There's 10.8 million kids in the U.S. That have an incarcerated parent.
Wow. And
statistics show that 85% of them are going to go to prison themselves. And so family reunification, outside of changing the heart through Jesus, it's really now changing the mind and saying, hey, you know what, I'm going to teach these men. These men are going to teach themselves, raise themselves up to be the leaders of their home, specifically the spiritual leaders of their home again. And that's really our goal and intention. And then we do some of the reentry aspects of things as they reenter society, job placement and training. In fact, we're getting ready to launch our second app called Pando Plus that is very similar to kind of a master class, if you will, where it teaches them industry-specific skills and just even how to buy your own house or what's the benefits between renting and buying, those simple things that a lot of these guys didn't grow up knowing or have someone to teach them. We teach them through that application. So,
And this app, so you guys launched, tell us a little bit more about this app. It's quite amazing how impactful it is and how you've actually been able to get it into all these prisons.
Yeah, it was actually a response to COVID, 2020. I honestly thought it was going to be the end of our organization. We knew that prisons would be the first thing to close down and the last thing to reopen. Obviously, things like sickness and disease already run rampant in prisons. And then when a pandemic hits, it's especially taken serious. And so we literally, all of our programming up until this point was in-person programming. We'd go into the institution, some institutions daily, others weekly, and do all of our programs. Well, all of that shut down literally overnight. And so I remember crying for the first 2 days of the shutdown, and then kind of got into fight mode and started opening up all of our strategic planning and what was on our vision boards, like how we could respond to continue to do ministry in a time that literally there was going to be none. And we had the app on our vision goal actually to start 2025 this year. And I was like, all right, hey, we're going to put all of our eggs in this basket. I called our team. We started to figure out what it would look like to build a prison or an app that's available for a prison tablet. Obviously, there's a lot of different nuances and security that goes on those specific tablets. It's not like just the mainstream market where they can have access to anything. And so we had to figure this out. We went from idea to implementation in 6 months. January of 2021, we piloted it, and then we started rolling it out across the country. And now we have 2.4 million users a year that connect with our application. Put that in perspective, there's about 1.2 million tablets in circulation within the United States prison system. I believe in the next 2 to 3 years, there'll be every individual, which is about 2.4 on any given day, that will have access to a tablet by the end of 2028. And this app exists on every single one of their tablets. It's like a Netflix of faith-based content, if you will. And so pretty much every church in North America, whether it be their weekend experience, worship music, podcasts, devotional content, The Chosen, Bible Project, anybody that's faith-based, pretty much, that captures and distributes content, it's available to these guys 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And this month, we feel like prayerfully that we'll cross over 1 million salvations. And that's 1 million different individuals that have clicked that button, that they want to accept Jesus as their leader and forgiver of their life. And so, yeah, man, it's been amazing.
Wow. So 1 million salvations, you kind of just shared that briefly, man. That's so much impact. That is a massive, the kingdom is being completely transformed in the prison systems because of this app.
Yeah.
Like 1 million salvations. The app is the vehicle, right? The content is the vehicle. God's doing the work. However, your calling, right, is being lived out. There's people that are listening to this podcast that are wondering how they can make it. Not everybody's going to make an impact of 1 million salvations, right? That's a very unique impact. But what got you started in this like ministry? What was the decision that? And then I want to go into how you also, Anthony, how you got started in this thing. But what was the decision what caused you to launch it? Like, why? What's your why? Yeah.
One thing that you said there before I answer that question is that not everyone is going to have that impact. And I think that is honestly the hesitation that a lot of people have, that they feel like, man, if I'm not having 1 million salvations, then I'm not really being used by God. And I think that's even often a lie that the church sells. I can't tell you how many times like pastors in my life have been like, oh man, God's favor, anointings on your life with the impact or the response that you're getting. And I don't completely agree with that. I honestly think that each and every one of us have a different role to play in the kingdom, and that God smiles on the person that saves one just as much as he smiles on the person that saves 1 million. And so in this whole plan that we don't understand or can't even begin to comprehend of how God is using each and every one of us individually throughout our lives to fulfill something that he ultimately wants to fulfill. It really comes down to just being open to say, yeah, I'm a vessel and I'll be used however you want me to be used. And so I just wanted to say that because I think that's literally, that's been a struggle of even mine. Like, is my worth and my value placed in ultimately like what God wants to accomplish through my life or these big numbers? And so
I think it's where a lot of pastors get stuck.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
it's a number. It turns into a numbers game.
Yeah. And I think if your heart is open and you're like, God, use me however you want, whether it's 1 or 1 million, you might see a giant response, but not always. And that's okay too. So, but to answer your question on how I got started, I grew up a pastor's kid in Las Vegas. My dad leads a very large church there. And I was really into football. That was kind of my identity for the first 22 years of my life. Played it all the way through college. Vegas is different from your normal metropolitan city where you've got suburbs and then you've got lower income communities and everything is separated. Like in Vegas, it's one big melting pot. I went to school with kids that drove Ferraris to school all the way to kids that didn't know where their next meal was coming from. And then playing sports obviously allowed me to connect with a lot of kids that were different than me. Their upbringing was different than me. And some of my closest friends were those of the lower income communities with different morals, values than what my dad raised me in. And I was kind of a partier, obviously being in Las Vegas, that's pretty easy to do. Football kind of got to my head, and I ran around with some kids that enjoyed the same things that I did. Thank God that God used football to keep me grounded beyond it, allowing it to turn into addiction and other things that happened to other people. Well, 2 of my closest friends, my freshman year of college, while I went away to play football, ended up going to prison. And I was back volunteering at one of the satellite campuses at this point in time. And basically, a satellite campus is where you do church outside of the main campus, and they were doing it in a high school, set up, tearing down, and I was helping my brother. I'd work out there every Saturday and turning this high school into a living, breathing church. And I got a call one day from my friend Ryan's mom, and she said, "Hey, Ryan's going away to prison. Is there anyone at your dad's church that can go and visit him?" And I called my dad, and he's like, "No, we don't have a prison ministry." And so for me, it was kind of an Isaiah moment. Like I felt like God was just tugging at my heart, like, "Hey, you need to go do this." And so I went, and what turned into a visitation, or went from a visitation, turned into quick passion of wanting to reach more of the Ryans of the world. I had a newfound faith while I was playing football. I started attending a local church down in the area and gave my life to Christ that summer. And so I was passionate about my faith. I knew what my faith was doing for me, and I wanted to share that with Ryan, and then ultimately more of the Ryans of the world. And so I started a small group in the Regional Justice Center, which is the largest jail in North America. 70,000 people a year go through there. And I was probably about 20 years old at the time. And what went from 2 people to 32 people really quickly inside of this jail, I felt like, man, I didn't have the tools, or I wasn't equipped in my own faith journey to teach these guys. And so I started wheeling in a TV. And
How old were you during this time?
20.
20.
Yep. So put my dad's church on there, would show the weekend experience, and kind of sit with these guys for an hour, and then open up for conversation afterwards. And one day when I was helping set up and tear down inside of this high school, I was like, man, if we could do this in a high school, why couldn't we do it in a prison? And so I started to figure out the pathway of launching in a prison. And on Christmas Eve 2009, we launched our first campus inside of Florence McClure Correctional Institution. And it's a big IMAX theater experience that we stream a local church in, provide volunteers on a weekly basis, and we basically plant a church inside of prisons. And that was our bread and butter for the last 15 years. We now have 80 plus, 77, 80 on the board, right?
Yeah.
That we've launched and planted these churches inside of prisons all across the country, partnering with local churches. And then the app was just in addition to that. So our whole mission, obviously, is to introduce them to Jesus, but to connect them with the local church, because we believe that God behind bars is just a season of their life. The local church is the rest of their life. 95% of anybody that's incarcerated is going to get out and walk the streets again. And so to connect them to the local church, that they have an opportunity, a family that they can call home before they ever leave prison, and plug in with their family upon their release, is extremely vital and important to the success of them never going to prison again.
What do you think? What do you think is from what you've seen? Right, you've been involved in this for a while now, 15 years. What do you see as the primary reason that people are? What do you see as the core behavioral or mental or heart issue that causes people to end up in prison?
Yeah, I think honestly it's a hard and heart. Like, I think that we don't take that serious enough in our own lives. In fact, I think that men in general, due to the things that happen to us, whether it be in our childhood or over the course of our life, allow for our heart to get hardened. And obviously, as the way that God designed us as strong leaders, we can either go one way or another way. And so what I've found is, through a lot of the conversations that I've had, or even letters that we've received, is that the majority of these men had some pretty tragic things happen to them in their life, or their father was absent, and they allowed their heart ultimately to become hardened and then go to what was easily available to them, and that was the streets, whether it was selling drugs, doing things that to make quick money, because no one ever taught them how to be business leaders and do things the right way. They have the hustle, but just the wrong hustle, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I'll just add too, like, it's trauma-based and identity-based.
Yeah.
They'll have a certain trauma in their life, whether it be a father wound, mother wound, outside of that family wound that happens, And then from there, it's their identity gets wrapped up in something else, whether it be a different father that's the wrong father, like a gang member or whatever it might be. And then they idolize that, and they end up idolizing things like money and stuff like that and making it the wrong way. And then from there, their whole path and their mindset turns into, little by little, the enemy, in my opinion, uses that to bring them down the wrong path. And then ultimately, obviously, the law gets involved.
Yeah, it's interesting. So one's perspective of trauma and those trials makes a huge difference, right? So we teach a lot on Romans 8:28, which is a critical verse. And right, God works all things for the good of those that love him, who've been called according to his purpose. So that sets our perspective up in a way where when we see trials, and James 1, 2, 3, and 4, which is considered pure joy when you face trials, those two verses set us up for success, because when we now have trials or some trauma that happens, we know that God has a plan, or we know that this is going to make us stronger, right? And so what happens is if people don't have that perspective when trials or trauma happens, it then becomes a part of, they go victim to it, which is number one. I would say from my understanding too, in the prisons, there's a lot of victims. Guys that have gone victim in prison versus taking full responsibility. I think that might be a great training as we build out the prison one-day event. That we need to have. We do a really powerful talk on victim responsible. Pretty game-changing talk that shifts a person's mindset from victim to a responsible human being. And so I think that is a key part. And then once they go victim, then their heart gets hardened, right? Because it's only when we go victim. If we go back to Cain and Abel. Right, he went victim, and then his heart was hardened, and then he locked in, and then he took matters into his own hands. And so, I was just curious about that. We work with so many men, right? We do a similar thing, which I love. We're on similar paths with different context, right? So you're in the prisons, we're out here outside the prison, but men are dealing with the same issues.
Yeah, they're in spiritual prison, right? Or even emotional. And I think that's one thing that I've realized over 15 years of doing this is that these guys that are incarcerated, we often have our Hollywood view of that. And we're like, man, it's almost like becomes our bar. At least I'm not as bad as that guy. But the reality is that we probably are a lot more alike than we think. Theirs just happens to be socially unacceptable, and then ultimately their crime is physically able to be seen, or the prison that they're in is physically able to be seen, versus some of us have gotten ourselves into this spiritual or mental prison that obviously isn't physically able to be seen, but our response is the exact same way that these guys have responded. So
they just they haven't either broken the law or been caught breaking the law, right? I have a belief that we're all criminals. Some of us are just more arrestable than others, right? So, right, we've all done criminal things. We've all done things that we should not have done, but some of us, right, we've had different consequences. And so all of us have that spirit, the spirit of the flesh, right, that wants to go that wants to sin. And talking about being in a prison, right? There's a lot of human beings that are in a mental or an emotional prison, where they're stuck with their own thoughts or their own emotions that they can't get past. It may be the emotion of anger or depression or fear, right? And so we're stuck in these prisons just the same way that these people are. So I say the human experience is the same, right? The same experience, just different context.
Exactly.
Interesting. Yeah, I love this talk about just behavior and the psychology behind the behavior and the heart behind it. And on the hardened heart, it's so true. When something goes wrong, I believe our hearts get hardened. And there's a question I wanted to ask you before we go into that. There's something else. Is what would be an example of a hardened heart? So how do you know if you have a hardened heart?
Man,
let's say you're not in prison, and so you're living life. What's that look like?
I would say it just it starts with your marriage, honestly. Like if you just, that's just a great example. Maybe it doesn't start there, but a great example of that could be your marriage, right? Like if you have a hardened heart towards your wife and you start doing things to punish her in mentally, physically, emotionally, whatever that looks like.
Stonewalling.
Yeah, I mean, that is the beginning of a hardened heart and an example of it. So I think if you take that example and you look at that, that's what leads to divorce. So it could be, you could put that in any arena. You could do that with your faith. Something happens, you get church hurt, you harden the heart, you lose God, right? And so I would say with the law, it's the same thing, and you ultimately harden your heart, and then it leads you down a path that obviously you don't want to go.
What would you say, Anthony, is one of the hardest things you've ever gone through? Yeah, we're going there. I would, if you're open to it, man. Since we're getting real there.
Yeah. Hardest thing I ever went through is a double discectomy on my lower back. Throughout my back, puking on an empty stomach by taking zinc, and I was down for 11 days taking double oxycontins. It ruptured the disc, went out and down the canal. I couldn't walk for 11 days. Thought I was going to put a gun to my head and just end it. I had 2 kids at the time. My third hadn't been born. And I was sitting
from just the pain or the hopelessness.
It was the pain because I couldn't focus on anything else besides the pain. And if you don't have your health, you don't have anything, in my opinion. It's once you lose hope, I think who said it? Someone said if you can last so many days without water, so many days without this, but you can only last 7 seconds without hope. I was starting to lose hope at that time. And being down in a sit-up position for 11 days, taking double Oxycontin 10s and then not doing anything, and the surgeon saying, I can't do your surgery because you have a special insurance. I was like, well, I don't know what else to do here. I went to the emergency room twice. They're giving me double Dilaudid, which is a derivative of morphine to numb the pain, but I couldn't move. Like peeing in a cup, my parents coming over and feeding me. Ultimately, obviously, I ended up getting the surgery and getting out of that, but I met God and stared the devil in the face at that time for sure. Yeah.
Wow, man. Yeah, pain. I've shared it a couple of times, but my wife's dealing with some intense health challenges, and so she's working through. At times, it can feel a little hopeless.
Yeah,
it's long term. It's been about 4 or 5 years.
Wow.
So that's I get that, and I've been seeing that with her, being able to push through. It's caused her to lean into God at like the deepest core level.
Yeah.
Because she can't. There's nothing that can be done to shift her specific issue right now, or it's not happening, and so she's just it's all God.
Yep. I think where hope kind of set in for me in that moment was I was asking victim, why God, why God, why God? Like, why are you doing this to me? Heard nothing. 4 a.m. changed the question to what do you want me to do? And clear as day, he said, learn the word, teach the word. And that's immediately when, ministry became the number one thing for me in my life.
Wow.
And
wow.
Well, to that point, I think that we need to wake up to that a little bit. The whole why God aspect of it. I just had a conversation with a guy this past weekend that basically was saying, hey, he doesn't believe in God anymore because of the things that have happened to him in his life. And I said, well, great. If you don't believe in him anymore, then he doesn't exist. So you have no one to put blame on because he doesn't exist. So what are the things that you need to do from this point forward to change the outcomes of your life? Because the reality is bad things going to happen to everybody, right? But we tend to put all the blame on God of why did you allow these things to happen to me? So therefore I'm no longer going to have a relationship with you. Then go back to hope. If he's the only one that can control outcome, then you've just now lost all hope because it's now in your hands to control all of the outcome. And so I often even tell my kids, I said, hey, look, you got to pray like it's up to God, but you got to work like it's up to you. He's looking for you to take action, right? Move. I can't tell you how many guys that I sit across the rooms with that literally are sitting on their hands, sulking in, hey, this is what has happened to me, and therefore I'm going to blame God, and then I'm going to justify all of my sin, my inability to take action or move, and I'm just going to sit here and wait for God to respond. Like, no, the idea is that you respond first. In fact, as many of those that are listening right now are leaders, I think the greatest aspect of leadership is realizing when you are the actual tip of the spear. I don't know how many guys say, you got to be the tip of the spear. You got to be the tip of the spear, but they're not the tip of the spear. The tip of the spear, what makes the tip so vitally important is that it goes first. The blade doesn't even cut until the tip penetrates whatever it's going to penetrate. And so as leaders, we have to go first in every area of our life. If we want a different outcome, then we need to move first and pray like it's up to God, right? We want our wife to love us, then we need to love, or we want our wives to love us more, we need to love her first. We want her to respect us more. We need to respect her first. And so I think us as men in everything that we do, whether it be parenting, work, spouse, whatever it is, our relationship with God, we have to go first. It's not some magic genie that's going to just pop success on your front door and walk away if you live your life right. No, it's every aspect of your life. You're going first and saying, you know what, God, whatever the outcome is, I'm going to trust you, good or bad. I'm going to trust you that it is for the good of me. So,
Yep. Passive men are ruining families and the country, right? Passivity, weakness, and it's the behavior that is a learned behavior where if you basically take a step back and you don't choose to go first. So there's a lot of passivity in my life was very destructive. I would learn and I would wait for Jessica to make some decisions instead of making the decisions and moving forward. Like, and a lot of guys can fall into that trap even with simple things like date night. Hey, what do you want to do? Our wives want us to lead. They really do, right? And so it's not, hey, what do you want to do for dinner? It's, hey, babe, I got this plan for dinner. Does that work?
yep.
You know, and so it's actually taking the lead, which it's easy to fall into, especially if you have a strong woman, and because she's going to want to take the reins. With my wife, Jessica's a very strong woman, and she likes leading and being in control because it makes her feel protected, like she's in control of her life and relationship. And so I've had to actually like almost physically grab the reins and take them back because she wanted to lead. She said she wanted me to lead. She did in a heart level want me to lead, but man, me leading was fear for her, because if I led her the wrong way, like her previous relationship did, then that's the worst thing that could happen. So she's like, hey, I want you to lead, but I don't know how to have you lead. And so I had to pull the reins and actually start taking it and being willing to battle with her for those reins and say, hey, I'm leading here. I love you. I'm leading. I'm going to take care of you. Don't worry. I will mess up, but man, I will lead and I will course correct as I lead.
How long did it take you to figure out that when your wife wanted to take control, it had nothing to do with you but past trauma? Because I think that's important. Like the fact that you even understand that is huge into a relationship.
Well, we all have our past wounds, and almost all of us operate from our past wounds. Is what I've learned. And so all of us have we have a question that if we didn't get this question answered with a yes as a kid, we try to get that question answered as an adult. So if we didn't feel loved as a kid, we use our spouse as a way to try to feel loved, which is unfair to them.
Yeah.
So if we didn't feel safe as a kid, we use our spouse to create that safety. If we didn't feel wanted, we use our spouse or other relationships to try to feel wanted. So we force them into a weird position where if they can't be themselves, they're always having to. It's where codependency comes from. It's now you're like, you need the other person versus being comfortable. When God talks about us coming together as one, it's not saying be the same person. It's two separate people that are now tied together, right? So you have still your own thoughts, your own beliefs, your own passions. You still are an independent person, but you're now like molded together. And so, if we don't get the question answered with a yes, like am I safe or am I loved, man, we're gonna live our entire lives trying to get that question answered with a yes. And every time it doesn't get answered with a yes, it throws us into survival mode. And then we're trying to, like for me, it was am I significant or am I successful? Right? I struggled feeling accepted, so I chose as a kid, hey, I'm gonna do everything I can to be significant. So that's where a lot of the success came from, and starting businesses and launching things and launching ministries I subconsciously was using that to fulfill my own needs until I eventually healed that part of myself where I don't need significance or success from outside of me. Like God loves me exactly who I am.
Yep.
That's where we talk a lot about identity in Christ. It's thrown out all the time, but no one knows how do you shift your identity in Christ? How do you actually operate from that place versus just saying, yep, I got to shift my identity to come from my identity in Christ. It's like, what does that even mean, your identity in Christ? And it's so vague sometimes. And that's where a lot of, I believe, inmates get their identity so broken. He talked about trauma and identity.
Yep.
Their identity is just so far off base that they now think they have to go do something to be someone. But in reality, if we can pull our identity from Christ, which again, I'm not saying that's the wrong thing. I'm saying there's a process for integrating your identity in Christ.
Yep.
Not just saying it or reading a couple verses, but it's like it could be a multi-year, 5-10 year process of like shifting your identity to where you believe that you are beloved. You truly believe you're beloved and truly believe that you're loved and accepted and embraced.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And
I hit a few things on,
I've seen it time and time again. Just even one gentleman that we just recently interviewed on our podcast out of Missouri, same thing. He grew up with many men in the home, single mother who raised him, and he attached himself to one of her boyfriends and the persona that guy carried, and then he spent the rest of his life trying to basically have the exact same life that he did. It ultimately drove him to a point of crazy, literally, to where he committed a crime that now he'll spend the rest of his life in prison. And so that identity, I think it starts with acceptance. Honestly, like I see that time and time again, like even those that, hey man, I need this Jesus character to be forgiven. Well, then are you going to fully accept that you are forgiven and that he loves you and that you can start healing from those past mistakes? Because that's the turmoil that people get themselves in. They give Jesus a try, but they never fully, they might accept him as the person that is talked about in the Bible or what history has said about him, but they've never fully accepted that he loves them in spite of everything that they've done, or fully even accepted that he is Lord of Lords, King of Kings, and that he has the ever-changing power to transform our lives. It starts with acceptance, accepting everything that he says to be truth as truth, and then shaping our identity and our lives off of those truths.
That's so good. It's forgiveness that gets you over the hump. It's the Holy Spirit that comes in, washes you away, and then it's picking up the cross, whatever that cross is for you, and walking in forgiveness. That's so good.
And knowing that you're probably going to screw up again.
Right.
But that he loves you in spite of it all. Obviously, I don't live my life with that as a justification, but accepting that I know that I probably am not going to be perfect till the day that I die. And that I don't allow one simple mistake or even a slip up to go back to something I used to do to derail me from all of the life change that's already taken place.
That's what Satan uses to keep people in shame.
Yeah.
Right? The shame cycle. It's the I am bad versus I did something bad.
Yeah.
Yep. And so I think forgiveness, man, it's so good. Forgiveness is a key part of our identity in Christ, right? That is one of the key pieces. Is you operate from a place of forgiveness and being forgiven, versus always trying to earn forgiveness. Like there's nothing we can do to earn forgiveness.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of that's how I sometimes can pinpoint overly self-righteous or righteous masked people is they're the ones usually many times doing the most good.
Yep.
It's the people at church that are doing the most good, that are volunteering the most, a lot of times, not always, but yeah, I can sniff it out because they're trying to earn their forgiveness. They're trying to make up for the darkness that's maybe behind the scenes, right? And maybe it's not from the past, and maybe they're living a life sometimes of darkness, but that the mask is, hey, I'm a great Christian, right? And I'm giving back. A lot of the guys that we work with at Ruck, forgiveness and shame tend to be the thing that keep them trapped, and they freedom. We have an experience at Ruck where they get an opportunity to share some things that they've really never shared before. One of the most freeing moments when we choose to live in the light, like that is when we're most powerful and free. And when we choose to hide things and keep it in the dark, that's where we're trapped, and that's where Satan wants us. Like if we sin, right, we slip up watching some pornography or look at something inappropriate or do something, he wants us to not share that with anybody, and keep it in the dark, right? And so I think I wonder if the prisons have an opportunity for a space for vulnerability, where they can share. Because again, we create that space at these events, and it like the guys release stuff that they've had shame and unforgiveness for, and it's incredibly impactful. Do prisons have a space for that?
In fact, I would say that the majority of my spiritual growth has come from serving inside of prisons and hearing those vulnerabilities. In fact, like that would be my encouragement as to any man is, you want to grow spiritually, like don't just stuff your head in a Bible.
Yeah.
Go out and be what Jesus was in the Bible to a group of people that are different than you. It doesn't have to be prisons. I even get asked this all the time because I live on all sides of the fence. Some of my closest friends are special forces in the military. My best friend has served as a detective of the police department for almost 20 years now. And we have conversations all the time, and especially me, like I'm a protector by nature. I have 5 children. And there are things, crimes, everything in prison that obviously that sicken anybody, but they sicken me too. And I don't ever justify what these individuals have done is anywhere near acceptable. But what it has done for me is take my faith and take it to a perspective of literally defying all understanding. It's more of God's perspective and shaping my own heart and what God can do in the life of an individual. Because I used to even struggle with it, like, man, inmates and this, or he did this, or he did that. And it wasn't until like I started actually studying the Bible and living out my faith at the same time that these things started to stick out to me. But it was like, man, Moses was a murderer, and God used him to arguably have one of the biggest spiritual moments in the history of the world, right? Paul was a murderer and in prison, and what 2/3 of everything that I shaped my life on as a Christian was written by an inmate. Like what God has done in and through these individuals over the course of time. Like I don't want to be the roadblock, the spiritual roadblock to stop God from raising up the next Paul or raising up the next Moses. And I don't know who that's going to be. And so I tend to ignore, I guess would be the right word, of what these people could have possibly done and just share the love and hope of Jesus with them. And then obviously pray that the Holy Spirit does his job and literally transforms them into world changers, the next Moses, the next Paul. And I don't try to allow my own emotions or feelings to stand in the way of that.
Yeah. The first guy on the cross was an inmate too.
Yeah, first guy Jesus takes into heaven with him was an inmate. In fact, Jesus himself, our King of Kings, Lord of Lords, was labeled an outlaw by society. And so, I truly, I wouldn't ignore the fact that some of these people have committed some pretty heinous crimes, but I also don't think that it's too far gone for God to do something great in their life.
But there is a time for them to be vulnerable, and I would say a decision for them to follow Christ is very vulnerable in a prison. Have you ever seen this is a pretty vulgar example, have you ever seen Mayor of Kingstown?
It's a pretty crazy show. I started watching it.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, but that is obviously Hollywood on steroids version of prison, right? But in prison, as they're going to accept Christ, they're battling identities inside, gang affiliations and stuff like that. And when they make Jesus the Lord of their life, they're saying no to everything else. And so that is a huge vulnerability in the decision, whether they're leaving a different faith or whether they're leaving a different gang or whatever it might be. So those decisions we don't take lightly by any means, and we steward it so well.
One quick example of that is I had the leader of the Aryan Brotherhood on one of my podcasts. He's actually on death row. I had asked to interview a death row inmate, and the warden of the prison was like, man, I don't know, this is the first time ever that we would allow that. And so he went down the death row unit, and they've got the Pando app. And he said, hey, the founder of Pando wants to interview one of you guys. Obviously, every one of them raised their hand to be interviewed. And he goes, well, if you want to be interviewed, write me a letter and tell me why you should be interviewed. Well, one guy out of the 20 plus that are in that unit wrote the letter. And he wrote the letter. Then he went down and the warden had a conversation with him. They set him up for the interview. First time ever that a guy in the G5 lockdown unit gets to come into the general population. They walk him out. He's shackled from his hands to his feet. They sit him down in front of me. First time I've met this individual. And I said to the warden for the podcast, can we uncuff him? And he looks me dead in the eye and he goes, Jake, do you know what this guy's done with his hands? He's like, I don't feel safe or comfortable uncuffing him. And I looked across at Anthony. I said, I was like, are you okay? Are we good? And this guy's name's Anthony too, by the way, not this Anthony.
Okay.
I said, are we good? And he looks at me and he goes, you led me to Christ. We're good. And so he uncuffs him, and we have this conversation for over an hour, sitting about this far away from each other. And I never felt uncomfortable the entire time. This dude preached the paint off the walls on the podcast. And then at the end of it, tells me that he's going to lay down his patch as the leader of the Aryan Brotherhood and follow Christ. And so the podcast gets done. They're locking him back up. And I look across at him and I said, hey, man, this is going to be shown in prisons all across America. Are you good with that? And the question I was basically asking was, like, your life could be in jeopardy. And he knew exactly what I was asking. And honestly, one of the most bad A things that somebody's ever said to me, he looks right at me and he says, if it's the Lord's will, then let it be done. And so it was like, would we be willing to lay down our life for Christ? Like, that's where I get challenged by these guys every single day. It's like, man, their passion for Jesus and what he's doing in their heart and mind is so real. It's so raw that someone's willing to say, man, I'll lay down my life for that. I don't know many men in my life who literally lead ministries, world life-changing ministries, that would lay down their life. I really don't. I can't sit here and say with 100% confidence that even I would, if I'm just being vulnerable and honest. And the fact that these guys are able to look me dead in the eye and say, hey man, if it means my life and that's the Lord's will, then let it be done. And those are the things where it challenges my own spirituality in the men that we serve on a daily basis.
Wow.
So good.
What would you, what else would you say is one of the more impactful stories? That's a pretty incredible story of the impact of what you guys are doing, right? Yeah. What else?
I'll share a quick one.
Yeah.
We got this lady Shannon, who is ninth descendant of Joseph Smith, and she's sitting in a prison cell, affiliated with MS-13. Her bunkie was MS-13 at the time. She had a pretty dark past with her kids. One of her kids passed away, ends up getting double DUI, ends up in prison. She's sitting, and this is the first prison we ever launched in Las Vegas, and she's sitting in the back row, and if you know Central Church, Judd Wilhite is preaching on screen in a leather jacket. Well, what she's used to viewing God through is the LDS format, and so when she sees Judd on stage preaching in a leather jacket, she's like, what the heck is this? This guy's talking about Jesus. I know Jesus. What is he doing, right? So anyways, she gets put into solitary for passing things in the back row of that room. And as she's in solitary, she's at this point shivering so bad she ended up losing like 10 or 15 pounds while being in darkness. She said she stared the devil in the face, decided she was going to end it all. And as soon as she's putting bed sheets around her neck, strapping them to the door, she gets a knock at the door. Murphy Harris, don't give up. We got a fresh start kit waiting in the chaplain's office for you. And a fresh start kit, what that is it's a duffel bag full of goodies of the simplest things. A journal, some lotion, some candy, and because that's literally the stuff that we can bring in, right? A pencil, and she'll describe to you, you have no idea what that pencil means to me because I can write down my thoughts. You have no idea what that lotion means to me because of the smell on that lotion actually has scent. And I can feel humane. She goes, that bag saved my life. She then donates to God Behind Bars. We bring her back. She gets out of that, obviously. Donates to God Behind Bars. We bring her back inside. She gives a bag. We go dorm to dorm. She gives one of those bags to every single woman, and there are over 800 women. And she's now just going prison to prison sharing her story.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man, that's a special story. I love it. Yeah, the forgotten, right? It's the way I look at people in prison, man, is they're the out of sight, out of mind. That would be very difficult. I couldn't even imagine being out of sight and out of mind from my family, because after a while, right, I believe that happens, right? Maybe initially people are visiting them, but then after probably a fairly short while, people stop showing up when they know somebody's going to be in there for a couple years or 10 years, 15, 20 years. So they are the forgotten. They're the lost ones. And so that's why I love what you guys are doing.
Well, and honestly, a lot of the times it's like even some of the guys that are doing life, it's the family's protection to their own peace and pain that they cut them off, because it's almost like this person is basically dead, yet still alive, existing on this rock, but I'll probably never see them again. And so the letters and the phone calls stop, not because they don't love the individual, but it's like it's almost too painful of a reminder that this person is literally the walking dead here on earth when it comes to some of these individuals that'll do life but never ever get to have that visitation or those life experiences. And so it's the family's response to their own pain of trying to find some kind of peace and comfort in it. And so it's a real thing. I just literally baptized a guy at our Angola event that was struggling. The night that we spoke, he had that exact question. The same people that led me to Christ are the same people that cut me off the second I came to prison. And I just had two quick little things for him. I was like, man, one, some of us can be poor representations of who Jesus was. And I was like, I just want you to go read the red words. Don't read anything else in the Bible. Just read the red words. And those that say they know him and believe him, I was like, do they model anything that he was in those red words? And then you can see if it was a bad representation or not. But two is, I was like, it could just be a response to their pain, man. Like, we're selfish beings, and I'm not even saying that that's completely selfish. I think that some people that's how they guard their peace, and
that's how they cope, avoiding.
Yeah,
right. So they just avoid it.
And so it could just be a response to that. Either way, him having that acceptance of that, and I just asked him. I said, show them grace and mercy. I was like, show them grace and mercy. And that ultimately transformed his life to where I got to baptize him a couple of weeks ago. So help him to overcome that pain. Because, I think, again,
was he out of prison?
He is. He's in Angola, and he'll do the rest of his life there. He's got 2 life sentences, gang activity.
So he's in prison.
Yep.
So you're able, I was curious around the baptism, because you have a lot of salvations, right? It's incredible what the organization is doing with salvations. But what about baptisms?
Yeah, baptism.
How did that go down?
That's honestly, it's different in every institution. Some states allow for baptism to take place, other states don't. Even if they don't allow for full water submersion, we try to do some form of baptism where the individual stands up publicly in front of his peers or her peers and confesses their faith to Jesus, because that's really what baptism is at the end of the day, is a public confession that you're following Jesus. And so obviously we would encourage them to get fully baptized, but some of them aren't presented that same opportunity that we are. And so we try to be creative and still allowing for that process to take place. But it is very important that for us in our spiritual pathway, that someone, once they accept Christ, would take that next step in baptism for sure.
So what's next? What's next for you guys?
Well, we got a lot on the docket. Right now, one of the things that we're working on is God Behind Bars music. We've got an incredible worship team, and it started with us just leading worship inside of prisons, but we're now kind of transforming through the letters that we're receiving from inmates and conversations that we're having to be their megaphone through a musical expression. And so we've actually just recently signed a deal with a label, and this fall hopefully we'll come up with our first album. Wow. And all the lyrics in those songs are written from literally the words of the people that we serve, and we're really excited about what God could do through that. Obviously flipping the script a little bit. Prisoners are often the last to receive everything that we receive in the mainstream market, and we're going to allow them to be the first, and hopefully allow God to do what he's going to do with the musical expression to relate with people that, back to the beginning of this conversation, are in their own spiritual or mental, emotional prison, and that those words that we're hearing from the life change of these individuals in prison would also take life change on the world. And so that's one thing we got coming up. A lot of more campuses. Anthony, I think, has probably close to 50 different church plants that are on their board that they're trying to accomplish. Going international this year. We're going to go to the Philippines in July, launch our first campus over there, and we've got other countries on the docket as well, and so a lot of exciting things.
South Africa, Italy, Honduras. First international going. We going July 5th we end up Philippines, but there's over 1,000 state facilities here nationwide. We're in 77. So
That's it. Wow. I mean,
we're not even
relatively-
10%
Yeah.
yet.
Yeah. Okay.
And that is just physical campuses. Obviously, with the Pando app, we're over 250 facilities now.
Okay.
And reaching a ton there. But as
So
far
the goal
as
is to grow both then. So you want to grow the amount of users that are on the Pando app.
Correct.
And then also church plants.
correct, in the Pando app, we have targeting not just state, but jails, juveniles, and all different areas as well.
Okay.
But as far as campuses, we target a specific state facility, and over 1,000 of those. So there's a lot of work to do.
Yeah, and I think culturally too is just continuing to tell the story of what God is doing. He's blessed us with an amazing platform to share that, but more than anything, showing society that, number one, these people are just people, and we can have our own pre-notions and ideas of who they are, why that they are there. I don't fully understand why certain people's lives look different than other people's lives, but what I do know is that our God remains the same in all of them. And to share that story, and I think often he even uses some of the most unconventional stories to show that he's still a miracle worker and that he can change the world through anybody. And so that's the story that we want to continue to tell through our organization as well, is to really just showcase what God is doing inside of prisons. Nothing that we're strategically planning or intentionally trying to do, but that he's literally just using us as a vessel and as a tool to show his miraculous, life-changing power to the world. And that's really our heart at the end of the day. So
it's great. Love it. Love what you two are doing and the entire organization. How can people best support or find out about it?
Yeah, honestly, godbehindbars.com is our website. All of our social media platforms are just God Behind Bars. I'd say, number one, become a fan of the social media. Just the videos alone will have you crying in your bed at night and soften your heart, and maybe some of us need that. But it's God Behind Bars. Pretty much anything on any internet platform, all you gotta do is type in God Behind Bars and you'll find us. So
yeah, I'm excited to spend more time with you guys. Hopefully get out to your ranch. You guys are local, which is fantastic, man. Just right here in Texas, which is a beautiful thing. And and we got Anthony coming out to one of the Ruck events in July.
Let's go.
Yeah, super excited about that.
I told him, be more strategic. July, it sounds like hell on earth here in Texas.
Yeah, I'm one of those weird dude that
I would have signed up
likes
for
the
October.
hardest. Yeah.
You want to push through? You want the pain? You're okay.
I like the pain. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm weird.
There we go.
Yeah.
Dude, you're in the right place. Love it. Well, appreciate you guys. And I look forward to staying connected and growing these things together. Let's do it.
Awesome. Thank you
Sounds
for having
great,
us.
man. Yeah. Thank you.